This video shows how to make signs like these, in which the letters and symbols are connected together so that they create one part. I will use the IdeaPlasma version to show this, but this concept works for the version of MillWrite for milling machines and wood routers. This video will show how to make a simple sign in which some numbers and a symbol are attached to a rectangle. At the Setup page, there is an option at the bottom of the NC Format tab to fuse contour overlaps. Set that option to Yes. You might get this message telling you that the Auto Set option will be set to No. This option is only for the laser and plasma versions. This option is at the bottom of the Defaults tab. This option allows IdeaPlasma to automatically determine if the items you draw should be set to contour outside or contour inside, and it can set their machining batch. This option is useful when you are cutting parts out of a sheet of material. However, to fuse the overlapping contours, set this option to No. The image to the right shows horses and numbers joined to a rectangle. When creating simple shapes, it's also useful to turn on the option to remove the dropouts. The image to the right shows that this causes the 3D model to eliminate what it assumes will be the scrap pieces of material, so that you can get a more accurate view of the final part. Removing the dropouts increases the time that it takes to create the 3D model, which is insignificant for simple signs, but when you are cutting complex items with dozens of parts, such as this job, you might want to turn that option off until you are finished designing everything, and turn it on only when you have completed the drawing. Now I will create the sign. I will begin by drawing a rectangle that is 6 inches long and ½ inch tall. I'll put the center at x0, y0, but the x0, y0 location of the drawing can be changed at any time. Now I will create the text. The 3 mouse icons at the lower left corner of the screen show that the right mouse button will bring up the New Item menu, so I will click the right mouse button and select the option to Create Text. When I start to draw a rectangle to show where to place the text, messages appear on the screen to remind me that I can type the height and/or length instead of drawing a rectangle. So I will type 3 for the height. I will not specify the length of the text so that the length is whatever is normal for the text. Then I click the left button to place the text in the drawing. You should not worry about where to place the text at this stage of development because you will probably have to move it after you have set the font, spacing, and other parameters. Just place it somewhere and then adjust it so that it looks the way you want it, and then move it into position. I will click the left mouse button to place it here. I then enter the text. After clicking the Save button, its parameters appear on the right side of the screen. At the Beam tab, the usage shows that it is set to contour outside. This is because at the Setup page, the default machining operation for both text and geometry has been set to contour outside. Now I will move the rectangle so that it is touching the text. In order for the rectangle to fuse with the text, it has to either touch or slightly overlap each of the text characters, or it has to be closer than the width of the kerf of the plasma torch. It is actually the tool paths that are fused together, not the shapes. Now I will move the rectangle so that it is touching the text. I will click the right mouse button and then click the page turning icon in the upper left corner, and then select the Move Item option. I need to make the rectangle a bit longer. I'll click the right mouse button and select the Extrude Link function. This lets me extrude one side of the rectangle without altering the other lines in the rectangle. I will now switch to the 3D view page to see the toolpath and click on the 3D model option. Clicking the V button at the top of the page or pressing the V key on the keyboard will change what is visible. The upper left corner shows that it is now showing the cutting path of the torch. When the 3D model shows everything, you can zoom in to see the lead-ins and whether you've specified a lead out. Now I will add a horse to the sign. If I had a DXF file of a horse, I could click the File button and then select the option to import a DXF file. But there happens to be a horse in one of the sample symbol files, so I'll pick that instead. I'll click the symbol button and then select the sample symbols font. I will select this horse, and I'll draw the height I want it to be, and I'll click here to place it in the drawing. Then I'll move its location, and I'll use the extrude link function to extend the rectangle. Switching to the 3D view page shows that the horse is now joined to the rectangle. Now I will add 2 holes to that rectangle so that the sign can be attached to a house with screws or bolts. I'll click the right mouse button and select the option to draw points. The rectangle is a 1/2 inch tall, so I'll put the point a 1/4 inch away from the edges. In order to place the point precisely, I click the button to put a point at, and then I select at a distance. I then click one of the corner nodes of the rectangle. That will be the reference point. The message along the right side of the screen shows the options for specifying the distance. I will use the asterisk to show that I want it to be 0.25 units in the X dimension from the reference point and 0.25 units in the Y dimension. The dotted X shows where it's going to be located. Then I press the Enter key to place it. I will put a point at the other end of the rectangle by drawing a point here to show you how you can move points. When the mouse is hovering over that point, notice the bottom of the screen has a message that you can press M to move the point. So I press the letter M on the keyboard and then pick at a distance. I then select the other node of the rectangle, and this time I want it to be 0.25 units towards the negative x-axis, so I type minus 0.25, and then 0.25 upwards in the y-axis. A point can be either set to pierce in order to cut a hole, or set to spot by turning the torch on and off for a brief period of time so that it leaves a burn mark to show where to use a conventional drill to make a clean and accurate hole. So I will set this point to be a pierce point. I will leave the other point as a spot point so that you can see the difference in the 3D model. The spot points look like small depressions in the material, whereas the pierce points are holes. This makes it easy to distinguish between them. Now I will add a circle to each end of the rectangle so that the sign doesn't have sharp corners in those locations. I'll click the right mouse button and select the Draw Circle function. Then I click the point that I previously created, which is where I want the center of the circle to be. Then I make the circle the size I want. I can adjust the radius and its XY location along the right side of the screen. To put a circle at the other end of the rectangle, I will let the mouse hover over the circle and then hold down the Control key, which brings up a menu. The bottom of the menu shows that Control-C will copy the item at the mouse to the geometry clipboard. So I press C while holding down the Control key. Then I press Control-V to paste the item and use the scroll wheel to get to the other side of the rectangle, and click the other point to put the center of the circle on that point. I can now switch to the 3D view page to check if I like the design, and if so, I switch to the Tap Files page, and there is a CNC file for the plasma torch. If I click the Show Tool Path button on the right side of the screen, I will see the path of the torch, and if I click the Draw Slow button, I will see that it's cutting the inside sections first and then the outside sections.